Okay, so good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to you. This is the second of 3 events for Refugee Week 2022, and they're part of an ongoing initiative at the OU to become a University of Sanctuary. The events are organised by the OU, the Open Universities Sanctuary Working Group, and we owe special thanks to Hazel and to Laura for helping organise the digital aspects. Before we start, I think it's a good moment, as it's Refugee Week, to celebrate our achievement as the Sanctuary Working Group at the OU, and to remind everyone that the OU has launched 12 scholarships for asylum seekers and refugees. Now, that would mean that a successful applicant would be able to study at the OU for an entire undergraduate degree, part-time, as they're working over 6 years or more, or full-time. And all the fees would be paid. So there are also 50 free places that have to be applied for open access courses, and those are for people who aren't quite ready to go to university, but who would benefit from some study skills, etc. So please publicise these great opportunities widely. Hazel will put the link to the Sanctuary scholarships in the chat, and there'll also be further links at the end of the presentation. And the deadline is exactly in 1 month, 22nd of July. So please, please do circulate that to people far and wide. So at the same time as we want to celebrate our achievements this year as the Sanctuary Working Group, our progress is baby step by baby step towards becoming a University of Sanctuary. And these events and the partnerships that we're going to talk about today are a vital part of that journey. And we hope that these dialogues that we're creating both within and across the university, and with our trusted and truly partners who we truly appreciate, that we hope that we'll continue these in fruitful ways. Okay, over to today's launch. We're truly delighted to launch the digital photographic exhibition called Identity Over Time. And the exhibition presents images by Swansea photographers that were created during a series of photography workshops. During the pandemic, Spanish speakers from Swansea came together to explore the past, their present, their hopes for the future. And today we're going to introduce the digital exhibition with a short 15-minute film that focuses on the work and ideas of only 4 of a group of some 20 people who participated in the workshops. So we hope that this film is a kind of tasty teaser that will encourage you to go on and to explore the digital exhibition, and there's links to that. And I think it is a truly remarkable exhibition because it captures, I think, the lives and cultures of care and solidarity that blossomed during the pandemic amidst growing inequalities. And it really addresses the theme of Refugee Week 2022, which is healing. So without further ado, I think we will watch the film, and we should say a big thank you to all the participants in the workshop and to all of you present here today. We look forward to the question and answer session after the film.
My name is Humberto Gatica Leighton. I am a Chilean. I arrived in this country as a Chilean refugee. The reason Why we came as a refugees because of the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet. We arrived here in the October 1975. I come from the south of Chile, which is raining all the time, more or less like Swansea. I got a job in a community center in Nice to work with young offenders, teaching them photography. After 3 years working with them, I applied for a job in the what's called then the Swansea Institute of Higher Education, and now Trinity St. David University of Wales. I worked in the photography department for 23 or 24 years as a technician. And I started developing my own work, or my personal work. Slowly, without any pressure, that's the way in which I produce a set of images. The first image is karma, which is related to destiny or fate. It's about the things we can choose, but the others, the unexpected event that sometimes happen and we couldn't explain, but are part of our life. The image tries to show a level of uncertainty, because it's a kind of situation in which always I'm going back. Always I have this sense of uncertainty almost every day, because nobody knows it's going to happen. The second image, reunion. This is an exercise or kind of therapy, you like, how to break absence. Absence was something which went through my childhood, because my mother died when I was 18 months old. My father didn't know what to do with me because they have to work to survive. Then, after a year or so, he decided to take me where his brother. He was married but have no children. He left me and he told me he's going to the corner shop to get cigarette. Next time I saw him, I was 21 years old. I remember every evening I was sit in the front door waiting for him, but he never came. The sense of absence was very, very hard. Now the reunion is a kind of a dream in which I'm going to meet my mother, because this is the other thing went through my life, not knowing how my mother looked, how she was, tall, short, thin. I have nobody to ask. Then now with the social media, I contact some relatives and somebody sent me a very old picture of her. It was a relief, to be honest, when I saw her face for the first time. When that happened, I was 70 years old. I am 78 now. This was a kind of reunion. We are going to stay together, I think, for the rest of my life. No? The last image, horoscope, have to do with the future. A kind of future in which again involves the level of uncertainty. And because of the reunion, this is more or less touched in part. The picture shows a young man and a lady without a face. And that is the graphic feeling which contains in reunion again. I developed my expression through poetry and later on photography. But both, I think, are form of therapy. It was a point in my life where I realized the pain is going to stay there. It's nothing I can do. But I can perceive life from a different point of view. Put pain a little bit outside, not to be the root of anything, is very, very, very personal. That is the reason in which I decided to take it as a therapy. And it has been very, very helpful. They give me the opportunity to dream. They give me the opportunity to understand. They give me the opportunity to approach. And that is enough for me.
Hi, my name is Andrea. I come from Venezuela. Now I'm living in Swansea, studying creative advertising, and I was also digital photography lead within the workshop. These are the pictures I produce. This first one is called Crying Sun. It's meant to represent all the things that were left in my country and how I used to feel living there. There's a lot of stuff going on with my country, politically and economically speaking. People just can't live. People just have to live each day trying to survive. A lot of people just can't even afford to have a nice meal each day or 3 meals per day or just have nice clothes or overall have a nice life. So I think this is probably a good representation of how not only me but a lot of people felt in my country. It's called Crying Sun because my friends back in my secondary school, they used to depict me as a sun. Some of them used to call me Sunshine as well. The present one, it's called Drastic Trauma, and it's a bit dramatic. Honestly, it's just an exaggeration of the current situations with COVID-19. I'm pretty sure a lot of people relate with the fact that everything during the pandemic and the lockdown just felt so overwhelming. It was also hard to deal with because in the beginning, you're just like, oh, well, I'm just going to be inside my house. It's not that bad. But as time goes, you realize a lot of things you can do, a lot of things you start to notice. And I think it may be a different experience for everyone. But to me, it was a period of time for self-awareness and also trying to improve communication with other people. It was more like a time of reflection for me, I think, during the whole lockdown. A lot of negative aspects I didn't see of myself and of people around me came up. And I had to learn as well to deal with those things. So I would say it was time of reflection and learning, even though it wasn't probably the most fantastic experience during lockdown. I think it taught me a lot of things. The future one, it's called Blurry Face. It's pretty self-explanatory, I would say. I mean, about the title. What I did was to reuse an old self-portrait of myself that was taken back in secondary school. Because even though people are always evolving and changing, when you think about the future, today you may say, oh, tomorrow I'll do this or I'll do that. Or in 5 years, I'll be doing this and that. But in the end, I think people may change as well. They evolve and they just take different decisions. They learn new things. They discover new tastes. And so the future also changes because it's not something it's written yet. It's something you shape and you create as you go. That's why I had to rely on an old picture of myself. I wouldn't even know how it would look in a couple of years in the future. I'm a person who likes really experimenting with my appearance. And so I just really wouldn't be able to tell what color my hair would be, how would I look. So I use this blurry effect just to give this feeling of farness, I think. Everything is uncertain, I think, about the future. It's all about things you are yet to discover. But not in a negative way, I would say, because I'm not really afraid of that. I'm not really afraid of knowing myself. I'm not afraid of knowing or learning new things. So I say all this in a positive way.
Hi, my name is Carlos, originally from Venezuela. I chose my 3 photos to describe the different stages in my life, past, present, and future, key moments in my life. The past is being represented by a photo, me driving in a road back in Venezuela 10 years ago. It was taken when we were caravanning. It's an old and red Volkswagen Beetle I used to drive, and really, really lovely thing for me, and being attached with many special moments tripping along the country, and as well means how the family was enjoying so much fun and preparing for every holiday. So it was the most expected moment in the year just to plan this vacation, to spend days in different locations about the country. Second picture I chose is myself climbing a little hill close to Mumbles Pier. Deliberately, I chose black and white just to represent progression. I'm not sure I really hope it's going to be flying colors at the end, but I'm not sure which color it's going to be, so I chose black and white. It's just me at top of a really hilly side, trying to portray, to represent my dreams is to going up and keep running. Last one was taken this year in the Wax Museum and represents myself kissing a very, very famous British actress. Not particularly a fan I am, but I really admire her roles. Is me trying or kissing her? I titled this photo, Why Not? So my future, as I can envision, is many things. I dare to dream, why not? Not sure if I can achieve all of them, but for sure I'm gonna try. So for me, these 3 moments in my life are key, part of the same, the person who I am, and ready to embrace the changes.
Oh, hello. I'm Patricia Rodriguez Martinez Jones, a three-ethnic Colombian and British citizen. I'm the chairperson of a newly founded association called the Iberian and Latin American Association in Wales. The first photograph that I have chosen is a collage, and it's called Past Memories, Always Present. It shows my family members and different friends at different stages of my life. And it also shows my three ethnic roots, Spanish, African, and native Latin American. My grandma was a very important person in my life. She was from Spain and she fled Spain during the Spanish Civil War. And I used to enjoy listening to her stories. She loved singing and baking and dancing, and she had a lovely herbal garden. It also shows my mom, my dad, my brothers and my sister, and some of my nieces and nephews as well. And I miss my family dearly, but I'm happy in Wales. I have a good life here. I enjoy all my activities, and this particular photography workshop was a really nice experience. The second photograph is of my present. As I said, I'm the chairperson of the Iberian and Latin American Association, and we, throughout the pandemic, we were founded in October 2019. And since then, we have carried out 16 projects that have benefited all our 135 members. The last photograph is one for my future. I love traveling. And so this photograph is entitled Around the World in an Eco Cruise. And it shows my extended family with whom I would love to travel. I have so far visited 28 countries. I have a little map where I put a pin every time I go to a new country, but I still have many more to visit. This eco cruise is important because I am aware of the damage that cruises do to the environment, and so this eco cruise would actually solve that problem. I'm torn at the moment because of all the war and conflict, and I am a pacifist, so it really troubles me. But here in Swansea, a city of sanctuary, we're doing our best to welcome people who are fleeing all those shootings, kidnappings, bombs falling near them. We welcome them with open arms, and we are supporting them the best we can.
Thank you very much. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that film. Thanks to Tom Cheeseman, who put it together. Just before we go into the discussion, and the Q&A, I'd like to just say a few words about the series of workshops, because our group of about 20 people, they met from October 2021 to March 2022, and we all received training. We all shared various kinds of expertise, but mostly we received training in digital photography, and we received that training from among the best and shared our experiences of migration, as you can see. And what was amazing, I think, was that it was this kind of role reversal between Humberto, who was the eminence grise, a professional poet and photographer, but also, unfortunately, Charlie and Andrea can't be here today, but they were absolutely brilliant. And as digital natives, there was this role reversal where the younger generations were teaching some of the older members and exchanging skills. So I just thought that that would be important to mention. Now, I'm going to open the floor to Q&A. Please put any questions you have in the chat. And so while I'm waiting for some questions to come from the audience, I thought it would be a good idea, perhaps because it's Refugee Week this week, and we know that it's quite silly in a way to have a Refugee Week, but every week should be a week in which we consider these issues. But nevertheless, it helps to focus our minds. And this year, the theme that we're asked to focus on is healing, trauma and the power of healing. And in some of the discussion, it'd be good to maybe pick up on this question of the role of arts and cultural projects in dealing with the scars of exile and trauma and separation and loss. And maybe I can start by asking a question first to Humberto and then to Patricia. Humberto, you were a political refugee from Pinochet's regime. And many of the key themes of your work, as you so beautifully explained, are to do with absence and uncertainty. And I just wondered if you could elaborate maybe on some of the points you made about how your art, whether it's poetry or photography, how is that shaped by your experiences as a refugee? And in what sense has it been a healing experience? And finally, you kind of imply that the healing never ends, that the healing process never ends, but that you've discovered a different way of looking at it through art. So I wondered if you could say a little more about that, Humberto.
Well, somebody said somewhere that art, in itself is a therapeutic experience, and any kind of art, have that ability, and you can heal through its practice. When we arrived here in the beginning, was difficult, but at the same time, personally, when I arrived here in Swansea, we were a big Chilean community, the people exiled, in which they create, or altogether we create an atmosphere to keep, our identity alive, our language alive, and have this exchange, of experience, because we were coming from the different parts of the country, and at the same time create this environment to organize activities, in solidarity with Chile, to expand the knowledge about what is going on in Chile, through dictatorship. In that practice, I started thinking, because that was the time when I took photography more seriously. In a way, I was able to have a camera, to buy one, a proper camera for myself. Then in the beginning, I said, well, what kind of photography I'm going to produce? And when I start with the working inside the Chilean community, more or less in the documentary way. But after that, it was very, very positive and very good experience, but keep me too busy. Not have no time for reflection and all that, no? Then I try with landscape, urban architecture, in general. And it was an amazing experience because, to put the camera in front of the field, and start thinking and give me the peace, what we are looking for, because mentally we are not in good shape, And starting from there, I realized that therapeutic value this kind of practice, And we were talking with the rest of the community, and the people, started realizing, that thing. And even we have a choir, a folk group, and we meet 2 or 3 times per week, thinking and doing things like that. And then the experience in general, took this way. And later on, I find, this way to express myself, through a workshop the college where I work, sent me about photography as a therapy, with the famous Rosie Martin, which was a kind of a new way of to approach photography during the 70s, 80s, essentially, and which is to reenact a kind of the trauma you have, and was a kind of perform, and then to picture of that, and that's how they were working. And yes, I find that very, very interesting, very positive, but I am not in the performance side, then I need to something else. And then I find this kind of photo collage, to build a photo collage, and give me not only the experience or knowledge, to refine the craft, but at the same time, try to represent in a small rectangle, the best way with how we feel or how I feel. And after that, it was very interesting because the images, start coming to me. And usually when I was in the field trying to do some landscape or, a close-up of landscape, and allow me to live more or less in peace with myself. And from there, I think we start producing work, and it was the same with poetry. I think, was that was the encounters, I have every day with myself, and probably it's too selfish to say that, but this is a certain point to say, well, I can't talk or say something, if I have not experienced in that, And the only way is to share something, And even when sometimes visually could be confusing, or the poetry will be confusing in a way, but it's an invitation to reflect, to reflect our surrounding, what is going on in our head, in our mind, and how try to go forward. Because
Alberto, we've got some, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we've got some really great questions coming in from the audience as well, which they'd like you to address. And although I would love to continue listening, I want to make sure that people get to ask their questions. So Ahmed has asked, you know, you've talked so poignantly about the reunion with your mother and how she will stay with you forever as an image now, even though you only discovered what she looked like at the age of 70. So Ahmed, I think, is asking, how do you perceive home? Where is home for you? Ahmed asks.
that is a very good question and very challenging one, no? But I have, from a very early age, I developed this sense of outsider, no? In the beginning, when I was a child, no, and later a teenager, was a little bit complicated to me to try to understand that. And but I don't know, I developed that, and that is my sense, no, always, no, I have no home, I think, you see, even when I have one here now, but they do not give me the sense of feeling the place, no, and because at home with my wife, with all the children, it's a different thing, no, because inside is a Chilean and Latin American territory, you see, and we deal with that all the time, no? With the background music, for instance, we are talking in Spanish, no? And all our discussion is going on in Spanish, no? Then that gives me a sense of identity. And when we left Chile and the Chilean dictatorship took our passport away, no? We were without a country, without home, no? And we accept that, no? For me, wasn't difficult that, no? And the experience of life, no, it always have been, no, a little bit outside of the line. That is my feeling. Probably I am wrong, no? But that is my feeling, and that was the way I learned to live, to accept reality and explore my reality from that point of view, no?
Thank you.
Satisfied.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's beautiful what you say when you say that you learnt to live a little bit outside the trauma and not to allow that to be the root of anything. So maybe now is a good time to also bring Patricia in. Patricia, as you know, I think in the film it was explained she's actually created the Iberian Latin American Association of Wales. So Patricia, one of the questions we've had here is, do you think that running through your life, through the workshops, past, present, future, has that created feelings of nostalgia for home for you? And that's from Constanza, who also, hello Constanza, took part in the workshops, and she says that's what it did for her. It created quite a lot of nostalgia. Patricia.
Yes, I think it did, of course, because it makes you reflect upon different stages of your life. And in particular, that photograph which was not one of the shown ones, but the photograph where I arrive in Heathrow Airport at 4 o'clock in the morning, and there is nobody about, and I am on my own, and this sense of desolation that I felt of complete loneliness, which I had never felt in my whole life before, stayed with me for a long time and made me feel very nostalgic. And when I was doing the selection of my photographs, of course, that moment came back and I could almost feel it, because although I didn't come to this country as a refugee, I came voluntarily to work with the postgraduate grant from the British Council, sometimes the nostalgia now is because I feel in exile at times, because I can't feel, I'm not feeling comfortable with what's going on in Colombia at different stages. There's a lot of violence, a lot of kidnappings, problems, and I miss Colombia a lot. I miss my family in particular. And yes, I think nostalgia was one of the feelings and sentiments that run throughout. But I tend not to indulge or dwell too much in it, because it kind of depresses you and it makes you feel that you're creating a hole for yourself, and then it gets very difficult to get out of that hole. So whenever I feel too nostalgic, I try to bring positive thoughts and create a balance, and then not allow that nostalgia to dominate too much or to make me feel miserable. So, yeah.
Thanks, Patricia. And Constanza replies, yes, it has created nostalgia for me, because she says her heart is forever split, especially when she goes back and visits her hometown and comes back to the UK again. She feels a profound sadness leaving behind family, and this sense of not belonging anywhere and nostalgia always being present. I'd like now to move on to another question by Shona. Hi, Shona. Good to see you here. And Shona says, it's wonderful to hear and see the work created here. She's curious to know from Humberto and Patricia how you feel about the term refugee. Maybe you could begin, Humberto.
Well, the word refugee, the meaning, is depend how you define it. But I hear it in the last couple of weeks, I think, in which people is not happy with the term, you see. But personally, I think whatever the term it is, you have to have a kind of a definition what you are, what is your situation here, in this country, and in the end, I don't know. Personally, for instance, I feel a refugee all the time. And even when now, after all these years here, probably I am not a refugee, I am a British citizen, for instance, you see, and that's what but this is for me the legal aspect of that, and I have this feeling to be a refugee, because if we give whatever other name, whatever other word we use, you see, as soon as we open our mouth, we realize something doesn't fit with the rest of the population or in the place we are, and we need to accept that, because it's something we cannot change, even when you are take course about the vocalization, for instance, to refine your pronunciation, you always have the accent, to be a foreigner, and that's is the way in which I see and I feel it.
Thank you, Humberto. I think you make a very important point about no human being can ever be defined by a term like refugee, although those experiences may be defining. And I think, Patricia, you've made the point you might like to elaborate, which is that you don't have to be legally a refugee to feel like a refugee if your country takes a direction that alienates you. Would you like to comment?
That's right. For me, a refugee is a person who is seeking sanctuary, who is seeking refuge, and therefore is somebody who's got the right to have that refuge. And the person has chosen a place to go to seek their safety. and therefore where they arrive, they should be welcome, and they have the right to be welcome. And I think, yes, it doesn't matter what term it is, but people have, unfortunately, to flee all sorts of difficult circumstances. Most of the time, they do it involuntarily. I mean, they don't want to leave their countries. My experience is a lot of people would rather be home, go back home, but they can't. And so while they are abroad, and in this case here in Swansea, for example, I think it is the responsibility of all those who are settled here to welcome them, to make them feel at home as much as possible, to include them, and to give them a hand, to make their pathway a little bit less difficult, to open doors for them, and to just show a sense of solidarity and love, really.
Thank you, Patricia. And I think, you know, the Iberian Latin American Association of Wales, you've done absolutely brilliant work in cultivating a culture of welcome and hospitality. And I think, you know, just to add to what you've both said, one of the astounding things, I think, when you work very closely with refugees, asylum seekers, people who are seeking sanctuary, is that you can no longer, you know, accept the media headlines, because if you only have experience through the media of what this refugee crisis is, you lose the humanity. And you lose, I mean, for example, the association, Patricia, I've met people from El Salvador, from Venezuela, people who have been chased by gangs, whose families have been murdered, who've been tortured, who we don't hear so much of those stories. And that's why through this work that we do, through artistic expression, we hope that some of those, you know, the humanizing of the experiences of those who are seeking sanctuary becomes better understood. So I guess in response to your question, Shona, I think the question should be turned back and said, the term refugee is useful for whom and for what? And clearly it's more than a legal status. Olga has made a very interesting comment here as well. Let me see. Yeah, she says, in my opinion, when you're finding an identity, people who've come from another place, finding a new identity is very important. And she says she feels that we're more in a cosmopolitan age. And she says, I feel that some decisions should be found in the future, like some kind of mixed culture. And she's hoping that these, I think what I understand from your comment, Olga, is that can we overcome the prejudice and the conflicts between different groups and move towards a more cosmopolitan future? And what can projects like this teach us? Shall I start with Patricia for this?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, we are all human, and that's the basis for any relationship and any project and anything that we do. And it doesn't matter where you come from, what color you are, what status you have here or there or anywhere. To my mind, the important thing is how we relate to each other at a particular moment in time, and therefore a lot of other things that might be very important for people individually, when they come to relate to others, we can overcome it. Because whether we live in a cosmopolitan city or not, like Swansea, when I came here in 2000, was not very cosmopolitan. It has become so. But it's not the city itself, it's people's mentality and how they feel. And I know for a fact that some local people feel, quotes, invaded by all these new foreigners because they make them feel they don't belong any longer. If the shop, their corner shop, is full of foreign foods and so on, where are all my baked beans, you know? And they feel a bit resentful against incoming people. And that is, to my mind, a very narrow-minded way of looking at things. That corner shop is enriching the lives of people. Try new things, you know, and go a little bit farther on to get your baked beans. It's not a problem. And we enrich each other when we come into contact with each other. And we all have our own history. And that interchange, intertwining our histories is what makes us very rich.
Thank you, Patricia. Tom, I'd like to bring you in if that's okay, if you're there. Tom? Hi, Tom. Yeah, so Tom is the treasurer at Swansea Asylum Support Group, Asylum Seeker Support Group. And there are a few related questions here. So on this question of defining a refugee, whether it's a useful term, and when does a person cease to be a refugee? You've worked for over 20 years in a kind of cosmopolitan ethos around the organisation Swansea Asylum Support. Would you like to address those questions and specifically respond to Ahmed, who says the term refugee is Western, in my view? When he fled his country, Syria, to Iraqi Kurdistan, he was called a guest. And I wondered if you could shed any insights of what you've gleaned over the last 20 years or so about the usefulness or not of these terms. For whom and why?
So essentially, these are legal terms. I don't know, but I should probably know. I don't know much about the history of the term refugee, but it really comes in after the war with the International Refugee Convention. It's about international legal norms and the responsibilities that states take to protect people from other states, in this case. And then when people enter the UK as asylum seekers, various different terms are used, but for some people, to become a refugee means the same as to get your papers, to get your status, to get a visa, so that you have a you have a secure future. So it's a kind of aspiration to be a refugee rather than to be an asylum seeker. But all of these terms are, they have their origin in legal systems which are designed to control and manage people. And Ahmed made the point that, when he first crossed a border, went to the neighboring country, he was regarded as a guest. And that's kind of lovely. But I don't know what happened, the next border that he crossed. If you go from there then into Turkey, are you still a guest? Depending where you came from in Turkey, are you regarded as a guest then? Or, it's these terms are they all have their cultural limits for various reasons.
They're all problematic, aren't they? And I suppose there's a guest worker, the Gastarbeiter, the Turkish workers living in Germany, that the term guest then takes on a whole new set of connotations, because that means you will never arrive at a state of citizenship. Yeah, so thanks for that. And I guess just to finish, I mean, on the asylum seeker term, I mean, it is from my understanding, I mean, a state of great suffering, distress, endurance, and so being an asylum seeker is something that a status one wants to end, a legal status, as you say. But now over to Humberto, because after your years of experience. Fidel has asked an excellent question. Finally, when does a person cease to be a refugee? Does one ever cease to be a refugee?
There is two parts, in the experience of living this. First, when you are legally a refugee, and after a while the process is going on, and your state change. Why is that? Usually, when you are integrate, a part of the new country where you're living, that means officially you get a job, and start from there. You develop a professional, activities now. The other is, well, that's when you get the legal status, But the other is how you feel, The feeling of a refugee is a different thing, For some reason, in my case, it never left me, Because Gabriela, for instance, have a different experience, She always, she doesn't mention because she doesn't. I had the impression she doesn't feel a refugee anymore, But for me, it's in my mind all the time. When I'm writing or when doing my photography, it's more or less that is the background, you see, or the canvas where I start painting, whatever I produce. Then I don't think that's the right thing to do. I am completely wrong, but that's my feeling.
And you are entitled to your feelings. I think you make a very good point about there is a legal definition, but there's how you feel, there's the affect and the social. I wanted to go back to Fidel. I don't know, Fidel, if you would like to come in at this point. Fidel is a stalwart member of our Sanctuary Working Group, and you yourself have been a refugee from Rwanda. Would you like to answer this question? I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit, but Fidel, do you think you ever stop being a refugee? Do you ever feel that? And how do you respond to what Humberto has said?
I have actually put something in the chat because very clearly he distinguished, the categorization, i.e. the labels we are ascribed as people, and self-identification, i.e. how we feel about our own identity. But for me, I see myself actually as a global citizen, although it is an exercise which I keep working on because I don't want to be put in a box. I am a sort of a product of my journey, whether it was a journey which may have begun in Rwanda, gone to Kenya as a student, gone to Ireland, became an asylum seeker, refugee, a citizen, and now I live in the UK. So I see me as a product of all that, and I don't like being boxed into one group. Whatever the legal definition I may be ascribed to. In other words, I am a local citizen, and I believe I'm a local citizen in a full sense. And nobody is going to push me around and convince me that I'm something else. So that's a choice, though. And that's how I feel. And not everybody is on the same. If it is a continuum, not everybody is at the same level. And why should they? So if people feel nostalgic, we have to support them in their nostalgia. If they feel they are part of it, so be it. So, but as a society, you have to do more to make sure people feel at home, whether they are visitors, guests, whatever name we give them. While they are living with us, we should encourage them to be part of us.
And I suppose it's true to say with this new policy of sending people to Rwanda, your home country, towards which you have very profoundly ambivalent feelings, the definitions of being an asylum seeker or refugee are changing. The goalposts are changing. Do you want to make any comment on that?
It is moving all the time, and my issue, my concern is people who are suffering being played like a political football just for the sake of some political sort of arrangement. That's why I feel a little bit, a little bit uneasy. So let's be upfront and say we are doing this for political reasons as opposed to humanitarian or legal reasons. And unfortunately, people are being played and they're being used as a way of conveying some sort of subliminal messages. Some of them are subtle, others are overt, but most of them are covert. So let's be careful and figure out how we do it and remind the politicians that after all, behind those numbers, there are names, whom we should care for.
Thank you, Fidel. I think we're going to draw things to a close. And isn't it wonderful that we've been able to open up the discussion, some very excellent comments coming in. And just to end, I just would like to, because I think it is really important to share with you the page of our actual photography exhibition. And because what we haven't been able to do today is do justice to all the wonderful pictures and contributions that are made by all the different people who've been involved in this exhibition. And to them, we owe a great debt of thanks. Some of them are here, some are not. And we also owe a great debt of thanks to Patricia for her wonderful partnership with her association, to Humberto for his inspirational leadership around photography, and to our younger members who unfortunately can't be here because they're working, Andrea, and to Charlie, who were absolutely brilliant. So without further ado, thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Thank you for your contributions. And I hope you might be able to join us tomorrow for our final event, which promises to be equally fascinating, Blood and Gold. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you, Marie, for everything you've done. Great job.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.